Okay.
Okay, so it's 6:05. Let's go ahead and start with the presentation. Um, Wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nick Kuhn. I'm with a firm by the name of Kimley Horn, engineering and design firm that has been contracted by the city of Clemson to help facilitate the development of a master plan for the Nettles Park expansion. With me tonight are several members of the consultant team, as well as staff members of the Parks and Recreation Department and of the City of Clemson. We'll cover several items here tonight as part of this presentation. This is building upon our first presentation in November of last year, and we'll be presenting conceptual ideas and gathering your input this evening. Tonight's agenda has several parts. We'll cover the purpose, the project schedule, the process overview, and the project's website, the first four portions, fairly quickly, as this is mostly consists of information that was presented in November. But we do want to provide some highlights to folks that are joining us for the first time in this process. Most of tonight's time will be spent highlighting the concept plans and phasing that has been developed. These plans have been developed utilizing the input that has been provided throughout this process so far from participants such as yourself. We'll follow that presentation with a questions and feedback session. And so we'll open up to any questions and or feedback that you have that you'd like to contribute. As we're talking about the concept plans and phasing, we'll conclude that portion with a few poll questions that we'll bring up on the screen to gather additional input. And if you haven't already, please mute your lines. We'll cover the presentation here, and then we'll open up and during the questions and feedback portion, be sure to unmute your line before asking a question. All right. So the purpose of this master plan is really to develop a cohesive plan for Nettles Park and the expansion of a approximately 90-acre portion to the south and east of the existing areas of Nettles Park. This plan is really meant to guide immediate development as well as long-term phase development of the plan. So we can all have context for this evening. This map shows both the existing portion of Nettles Park, shown in the orange, as well as the expansion area shown in the yellow areas of the map. And as you can see, the expansion area wraps really the southern and eastern portions of the existing Nettles Park area. This highlights an important feature in that the development of the expansion area will have to provide connections as well as be consistent with the uses of the existing Nettles Park, as well as complement and work with the adjacent land uses around the sport park. The project schedule is approximately 12 months in length. We started this project in August of last year, and we had our very first community online meeting in November 19th of 2020. You can see in the middle of the schedule, we're approximately halfway into the project, and this is our second online meeting. You'll see some reference to the colored bars there that highlight P1 and P2. Those are abbreviations for the phases of the project. We'll talk a little bit about those in a moment. The first portions, the phase 1 and 2 of the project, data collection and public engagement, were launched last year. Whereas during 2021, we've been in the master planning development phase. As you can see, we're in the middle of that process, and we'd like to present the ideas and gather your input for a refinement and ultimately a development of a final master plan. This will conclude around the June timeframe. And then throughout the summer, we'll have additional presentations of a master plan document, and that will include presentations to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and to City Council, as well as a third community meeting on July 21st. We will target this meeting to be an in-person meeting, and we'll follow the safety protocols as we get closer to that time frame. Be sure to check back on the project website for additional information for that upcoming meeting and the details for it. The process of this master plan was really driven into 4 simple steps. As I highlighted, we were started in August of last year with data collection, and that also included a site evaluation. We looked at the physical elements of the park and the functional aspects of the existing areas of the park. We also launched phase 2, or public engagement, in November with our first community meetings, as well as a series of focus groups and stakeholder meetings and interviews throughout November. We're currently in phase 3, master plan development, which runs from December through June of this year. It consists of concept development, additional public engagement, as well as development of cost estimates and phasing recommendations. With tonight's information, we'll cover the concepts that have been developed, as well as preliminary recommendations for phasing. Cost estimates will be developed and refined following this meeting and will become part of the master plan document and presented at the third public meeting. Phase 4, the master plan development and approval, will be launched in June and carry out throughout the summer period. And again, this will include multiple opportunities to participate both in public meetings and in-person meetings throughout the summer. As I mentioned, the beginning of this process included a site evaluation. These are just some of the images of the expansion areas in some of the existing portions of the park. The park has a number of physical features that highlight various opportunities and constraints. We summarized this information and presented in November. This colorful diagram on the screen now has many features to it. You can actually download this from the project website and review it in more detail. But the layering of this information really helps us identify where the opportunities and constraints lie within the existing and the expansion areas of the park. These also include identifying jurisdictional and regulatory boundaries and limits, opportunities to enhance connectivity, also to highlight park experiences and physical features of the existing land. The project website has been active since the beginning of the project. You can actually, again, if you have your smartphone handy, you can scan the QR code to the left of the screen, or the website address is at the top. We encourage you to bookmark this website and visit it often, as we are updating it throughout the process, and will include additional opportunities to participate in the project. Also, tonight's presentation, as well as the concept plans, are available to download from the site. Once you visit the site, at the bottom of the screen, you'll notice a documents section. This continues to be a depository of information that you can download and review on your own time. This includes the opportunities and constraints diagram, our first workshop presentation from November, also a summary of information collected through the public engagement process in November, as well as tonight's presentation and conceptual plans. We've had over 5,000 visits to the site to date, so it remains a very popular way to contribute information to this process. We've maintained an interactive map feature on the website, which allows folks to contribute ideas and comments into the existing park area. You can see in this map, the red and orange symbols highlight various comments and ideas that people have contributed to this process. I actually have one highlighted here an idea for nature trails throughout with available varying ability levels, as well as a paved trail with no car access for safe bike riding. This is an example of comments that we've heard and collected. In this case, you can actually see this has been liked by 15 times. So it's one of the very popular ideas that have been contributed. You can certainly go on and add your own ideas and thoughts, and also like or dislike ideas that are already existing. You can also click on the sort of yellow circles throughout the map that are labeled as site pictures, and that will bring up an image from that location of the site, so you can get to know the expansion area a little bit better as well. As we move towards a final master plan, we'll actually overlay that master plan on the site, and you'll have the same idea, the same features to be able to comment on and provide feedback on that master plan as we move towards a final plan this summer. As part of the November public engagement, we had several different opportunities for people to provide both their desires and priorities for different amenities for Nettles Park. On the left, we begin with an online survey, which provided several different amenities. In this case, the collection and ranking of how many times a amenity was selected as the most desirable amenity to have at Nettles Park is shown in the bar chart here. At the very top, you can see a combination of active and passive uses of the park. Many retain around trails or hiking. We also asked a series of questions during our focus groups and collected information that allowed us to identify, again, different amenities and the frequency of how many times they were mentioned within the discussions. In this case, the bottom of the charts in the middle, you can see the most frequently mentioned amenities, such as unpaved trails or a gathering structure, pavilion, as well as additional parking and connections to existing trails. We also have had the interactive map feature up through this process and have had a number of likes and dislikes associated with comments that have been placed on the map. At the bottom of the chart, you can see again the most frequently liked amenities such as dog park and unpaved trails, bike trails, and paved trails are the most frequently mentioned or liked programs on the site. Through a combination of these methods, we were able to identify a recommended set of programs or amenities for the park that highlighted the most or highest priorities of the community to provide at Nettles Park. We also looked at the physical features and constraints of the site and incorporated this program as best as possible. Lastly, with the public engagement, we had an additional question that asked, do you support the park being more active, such as programmed spaces, or more passive or at-will recreation? As you can see in the pie chart, an overwhelming majority has identified a desire to have a balance between passive and recreation opportunities within Nettles Park. We've carried this forward and have prepared two different concepts that are both distinct in ways but carry these concepts forward. So we'll dive into the concept plans. These plans, as I mentioned, are two distinct concepts. However, they also share several commonalities between each other. First, there's a balance between active recreation, primarily on the western side near the existing portions of Nettles Park, and then a balance of passive uses on the eastern side of the park. Both concepts provide additional athletics and parkings to meet a growing need in the area for these, as well as proposed amenities are mostly identical between the two concepts. And this is important. And I'll point out the difference between the two concepts, but it's really the two concepts consist of a different way to solve the puzzle. And then lastly, the phasing was identified to achieve the highest priorities from the community while also balancing the need for infrastructure development. And what this means is, as we would develop the park, we want to make sure that we don't have to go back and disturb areas of the park to install additional utilities or other amenities needed for future phasing and development of the site. Also common themes across all concepts was the desire to carry forward the opportunities constraints identified, such as preserving the natural vegetation on the site, working with the topography of the site, and also highlighting opportunities to enhance the environmental conditions by habitat restoration and bringing out opportunities for education on environmental elements. So we'll dive into the first concept, and we call this concept A. This concept has a couple key elements. One is it has the highest number of proposed athletic fields or facilities. It also has the most additional parking throughout the site. With that, it would also require the largest amount of mass grading and retaining walls in order to work with the site's topography. And because of that, it also has the longest phasing period for key priorities. And we'll dive into this with the phasing to follow a little bit more detail. On this concept, there's a few things I'd like to highlight. The first is we have additional access points for the expansion area. One is an additional vehicle access point off Central Road. A third access point would be located off Porter Road. In addition, there'd be an internal connection roadway that links back to the existing entrance of Nettles Park and loops around the existing ball fields to the second entrance off Central Road. This roadway would continue through the expansion area and link back into the eastern portion of the site. Near the entrance would be a new proposed basketball court, as well as batting cages located in proximity to existing youth and softball fields. Immediately adjacent to existing multi-purpose fields would be an additional multi-purpose field sized to allow for 2 youth fields. This field would be flanked on either side by additional parking. The orange hatch shown within the parking areas would be grass parking and overflow parking areas. As much as possible, we tried to incorporate best stormwater practices in order to facilitate a more sustainable approach to Nettles Park. In addition, a new or relocated dog park would be located adjacent to the eastern parking lot. The existing ravine through the central part of the site has been preserved and would be utilized for both disc golf and also unpaved hiking trails. As we proceed east into the site, just off the third entrance on Porter Road would be additional baseball and softball or youth athletic fields, as well as additional parking. The high point of the site would be highlighted by an outdoor event space or amphitheater that would consist of a stage with power connections, as well as restroom and an indoor event space of approximately 4,000 square feet or sized for about 250 people. And that would include additional restrooms and office space and storage. Just off of the event space would be an additional parking lot, as well as an adventure playground, splash pad, and skate park component. An internal loop road would continue east and provide access to large pavilion and a day camp facility that would include restrooms, large pavilions, and adjacent to additional adventure recreation elements such as a paved pump track and a ropes course. The far eastern portion of the site would include natural and preservation of existing vegetation and unpaved hiking trails. The solid gray lines shown on the diagram would be paved multi-purpose pathways, while the dotted gray lines would be the unpaved hiking trail opportunities. In addition, the square white boxes and little tick marks would represent a disc golf course opportunity with an upper 9 holes, as well as a lower 9 holes in the existing park. The existing dog park location near 18 Mile Creek would include restoration of the habitat, as well as stormwater capacities to improve water quality and storage in the park. The images highlight some of the proposed activities to get a better sense of what is being depicted. And the athletic fields are also numbered for reference. So let's talk a little bit about the phasing for Concept A. The first phase, phase 1, would consist of the orange areas shaded. That would primarily consist of the 2 additional access points for the park, as well as an internal roadway and paved multi-purpose path connecting the existing entrance to Nettles Park to the high point and the outdoor event space and parking lot. In addition, the basketball court, batting cages, multi-purpose field, dog park, and the outdoor event space and adventure playground would all be included as part of phase 1. Phase 1 also includes approximately 2/3 of a mile of paved trail and approximately 2 miles of unpaved hiking trails. Approximately 380 additional parking spaces would be provided, essentially doubling the amount of space or number of parking spaces that are currently in the park and meeting the needs of the additional amenities. Phase 1 would also include stormwater retention and habitat restoration. We also identified a phase 1B, and these are amenities that are closely tied to phase 1, but may have additional funding sources or opportunities to provide funding to realize. These include an indoor event space, as well as lighting of the multi-purpose soccer field, a splash pad, and a paved connection through the existing park to the 18 Mile Creek crossing and replacement of the existing bridge for future connections to the Green Crescent Trail. Phase 2 of Concept A would include additional pavilions throughout the site, as well as the primary development of the eastern portion of the park. This would include 2 additional baseball fields and 2 additional softball or youth baseball fields, as well as concessions and restrooms, an internal roadway that connects from the outdoor event space parking lot through the eastern side of the site to the day camp facilities, as well as an additional 345 parking spaces, 1.25 miles of paved trails, and over 2 miles of unpaved trails. This development and phase would require an extensive amount of grading throughout the site and use of retention walls in order to provide these amenities. We've identified an area where topography and slopes are lowest in order to minimize these impacts. The last and final phase is phase 3, and that consists of additional amenities that were not necessarily the highest priority from communities. However, there's opportunities to align with other uses on the site. This includes additional paved trails, skate park, a paved pump track, lighting of existing multipurpose fields, and additional unpaved hiking trails and habitat restoration throughout the site. Now let's talk a little bit about Concept B. In Concept B, again, programming is essentially the same. However, we have one less baseball field included in this concept. Additionally, we have less parking proposed in this site, in this concept. We've also been able to concentrate, because of this difference in program, we've been able to concentrate the athletic components a little bit more consolidated around the existing athletic fields amenities in Nettles Park. We've also included a concept to have a complete internal loop road that would connect to the lower parking lot of existing Nettles Park. This would allow an internal access to all destinations and key features within the park, as well as enhance maintenance access throughout. The internal connection to the existing entrance of Nettles Park is similar to Concept A, as well as the additional access points to Central Road and Porter Road. Space for 2 future basketball courts can be located near the existing entrance to Nettles Park, as well as additional parking and batting cages. In this case, we have 2 youth fields or softball fields located adjacent to the existing fields of Nettles Park. We have parking associated with these softball fields and youth fields, as well as an additional baseball field. Dog Park would be relocated near the Porter Road entrance and would share an additional parking lot adjacent to a multi-purpose field that would be sized for 2 additional youth fields. The addition of a multi-purpose field allows for the existing baseball fields to return to single use. Similar to Concept A, the high point of the site is preserved for the outdoor event space. This would include a stage with power hookups, restroom, and indoor event space. Similarly, it has an additional parking lot associated for the event space, as well as the adventure playground, splash pad, and skate park. An additional access road would allow access to the event space, as well as to a proposed day camp facility. Similar to Concept A, the day camp facility would include restrooms and a large pavilion, and would be adjacent to additional adventure recreation elements, such as a ropes course and a paved pump track. Additionally, bus parking is provided in the day camp area as well. The solid gray lines again represent paved multi-purpose trail access and loops. The dotted gray represents unpaved hiking opportunities. And the tick marks with the square boxes represent disc golf opportunities, again with an upper 9 holes and a lower 9 holes. So let's talk a little bit about the phasing for Concept B. The first phase, you can see, has an extensive list associated with it. This is partially due to a reduced need for mass grading or retention walls throughout the site. Similar to Concept A, we'd begin on the eastern side or the western side of the park, providing the internal loop road access, connecting all the way to the lower parking lot of the existing Nettles Park. Additionally, we'd have parking lot and a lighted basketball court as part of phase 1, batting cages, softball fields, additional parking, dog park, and a multi-purpose field. We'd also have additional parking and an outdoor event space and an adventure playground, as well as disc golf as part of phase one. Unpaved hiking and paved multipurpose trails would be included. Over 1.1 miles of paved trails and 2 miles of unpaved hiking trails, as well as approximately 447 parking spaces, meeting the needs. And almost 95% of all proposed parking in this concept would be included in phase one. This concept also includes a phase 1B and would include a similar program as concept A. That would include an indoor event space located adjacent to the high point in the outdoor event space, as well as a splash pad adjacent to the adventure play feature, a lighted multi-purpose field, and a connection through the existing park from the existing entrance, and a replacement of the pedestrian multi-purpose trail crossing of 18 Mile Creek. Phase two of Concept B would consist primarily of additional pavilions, an additional lighted baseball field, development of the day camp facilities, as well as 1.5 miles of additional paved multi-purpose trail and additional 2 miles of unpaved trail. The last phase for Concept B is similar to Concept A. It would focus on additional paved trails, skate park, ropes course, and paved pump track. Additional unpaved hiking trails and habitat restoration would be included throughout the site as well. So I'll leave this up on the screen. This highlights again the key elements between concepts A and B. And as part of our conclusion here, I'd like to pull up a few poll questions and gauge your interests on these two concepts. I'll launch the polls here. We're going to have a first poll question is, which concept do you like most? And we have a selection of concept A, which again has the highest number of athletic fields and most parking, or concept B, which includes the concentration of the athletic amenities as well as internal loop road. So I'll launch this polling and we can have your input here, and we'll have 4 quick questions here that we can gather your input here this evening. And you can make a selection here. We'll watch. We have approximately close to 30 folks on, so we'll see as polls come in. So it sounds like, or it looks like we have a lot of supporters of concept B. As we move into the feedback, we'll ask a few follow-up questions here. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on why you support concept B and those that support concept A as well. So we can see 77% say concept B. There are a few folks, or one folk indicate neither, or a few that are not sure. All right. Let's go to poll question 2. All right. Poll question 2 is, do you feel the concept you like represents the best option for the city of Clemson and Nettles Park? Hopefully we've done a good job interpreting everybody's priorities. And I'll launch this poll by incorporating feedback both through the public engagement process and also the site's opportunities and constraints. Hopefully we've been able to accommodate everybody's priority needs. All right. So we'll have about 55% say yes, about 9% no, and about 36 are not sure. We'll dive into that a little bit more here in the feedback with some additional questions. This information is certainly new to you all, so you can have, again, opportunities to download information from the project website and get to know the concepts a little bit better. Let's go to question number 3. Does the recommended phasing for the concept you like reflect your needs and priorities? So in this case, we want to see if we can capture your highest needs with the early phases of development. We tried to balance the input that was provided through the November engagement as a way to come up with a program for and prioritization for different amenities at the park. So we have about 58% saying yes, about 32% saying no. We'll ask a few more questions. I'd love to hear on what we can incorporate, or if there's other items that we can modify with the phasing. And as I highlighted, the phasing was highly influenced by also what the infrastructure development would need to be for the site. All right. And let's have one final question here. This question is, do you support moving forward with a final plan? So hopefully we've shown some great opportunities here. The next step is to incorporate your input from this evening and progress forward with a refinement to a master plan recommendation. So what may come out of this process is a hybrid of these concepts. It may include other elements that we hear tonight as well. But we hope that we have your support in moving forward in this process. And it looks like we have a pretty overwhelming majority saying yes to continue forward on that. So that's great. We love to hear that we're on the right path. All right. So that concludes our polling for this evening. Thank you very much for providing your input on those questions. That helps us gauge how we move forward. But we'd also like to open up to having any questions that you may have or other feedback. We'll try our best to provide you responses. In some cases, we may need to have additional follow-up to provide responses to your questions, but we'll indicate that. I would like to go ahead and open up to any questions or feedback that participants have at this time. And before you launch into your question, be sure to unmute your line. We'll let you unmute and we can open it up. I'll leave the two concepts on the screen, but if there's any other slides you'd like to reference or go back to, we can certainly do that as well.
Nick, I'm just curious about the estimated pricing for each one of these concepts. Can you just give a ballpark estimate of what it is?
So yeah, that's a very good question and very timely. So a big part of what we do as part of this master plan will be cost estimating. And so cost at this time with this early concepts is sort of a moving target. And so we do have some preliminary ideas on what some of this may be. We're not quite ready to share that information or present that information, but it will be part of the presentations going forward with that as we incorporate input from this. So we have I want to make sure that we're capturing all the amenities and all the elements that need to go into these concepts. But I will highlight The primary difference, again, because the program is the same in both of these concepts, the primary difference in cost between the options is ultimately lies to the cost associated with grading and retaining walls. And so concept A is a few $1 million in additional costs, primarily because of the need to have some additional grading and retaining walls associated with that concept. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. I'm Ruth Reed. I personally like B, but I'm an older person. I don't have kids. So I'd like, a much broader opinion than the, what is it, 30 of us? Also, as needs change, how flexible is concept B flexible enough to be sort of turned into concept A over time if needs prove to be different than they are today?
That's a very good question, Ruth, and that's an excellent kind of positive to concept B, is that there is a lot of flexibility in concept B, and you'll see one of the primary differences is where the baseball fields and softball fields are located in concept A. Those are portions of the site that do have a little bit lower grading or slope to the existing topography. And so we're utilizing that. You can see where the baseball fields are in concept A are essentially the same areas where we have parking and the multi-purpose field in concept B. And so that's a great area to utilize for sort of those needs that require a lot of flat land. We do have where some of the disc golf is shown in concept B, as well as some of the hiking and paved trails are. We have the potential that area could be developed if there's additional need in the future. So certainly what we want to make sure is that we're kind of gauging through this process what the community needs and priorities are today. But we're also wanting to keep an eye towards the future and making sure that the decisions made today don't prevent us from having flexibility to provide needs 20, 30, or even 50 years down the road. So that's a perfect example. Yes, there is flexibility in that.
And transportation, Nettles Park is, I can walk there, but a lot of the town can't. Are there plans to integrate with Cat Bus and coordinate transportation for kids and families?
As part of this master planning process, we haven't included any specific connections to the transit systems. I would open it up to maybe some of the department staff if there's has been any discussions of having that at Nettles Park currently.
Nick, can I ask a question?
Well, let me just bring a quick conclusion to this question here. And so we do, we'll definitely take a look at and follow up on the transit connectivity. But I did want to highlight, one of the things that we are looking at again is that multimodal connections. And so the future connection to the Green Crescent Trail would be a big opportunity to really highlight Nettles Park as a destination within the regional greenway network. So there definitely would be a desire to have that, even have trailhead facilities here at Nettles Park. All right, I'm sorry. So
Yes.
Next question.
Yes, this is Sherry Jung. Nick, in November, when you did the survey and you presented the results, there were a lot more votes for pickleball than I see on this presentation. Are those different, that survey, and what the figures were for the priority of events on the site?
There's a couple questions we asked in November in regards to amenities, and we asked one question in terms of how And what I highlighted here this evening was the question on all the different amenities that folks would desire to have at Nettles Park, and it ranked the top votes in there. We also asked a question that was specific to if you had one sort of pick as the most important opportunity or amenity that you wanted to be included in Nettles Park. And in that case, I believe pickleball was, I think, a little bit higher ranking in that. And we also had a lot of votes for skate parks. And so that was through the online process. So it was great to have that input. We also asked similar questions during the focus groups and in the mapping feature. And I believe pickleball was maybe in sort of the middle of the pack in some of that feedback.
Is there a possibility of designating some of the tennis courts to pickleball?
I believe that some of the existing courts are striped for pickleball. I think your question is, could some of the existing tennis court be, would say, permanently designated for pickleball?
Yes. Yeah, more than the two that are there now.
Yeah.
Because there's a really growing community of people that play.
You can, yeah, we can look.
You can put multiple pickleball courts on one tennis court.
Yeah, we can look into, the opportunities. What we try to do as much as possible is to have facilities that serve multiple uses. And so any ways that we can include that, you can see the multi-purpose fields can be used for soccer or lacrosse or football and vice versa. There's lots of different ways. And again, the youth baseball fields can also be used for softball. So we try to get multiple benefits. So as much as possible to have both tennis and pickleball included and not have single use facilities would be ideal here. But we can look to see if there's a need for additional striping for a few more courts. And as you mentioned, you can fit additional pickleball in one tennis court area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And remember, if you have a question or comment, you can you'll have to unmute your line first.
This is Chad Carson, and I had a couple of questions. One specifically was about the Green Crescent Trail, which we've been working really hard on. There might be some updated changes that need to be incorporated into this, and we've shared a lot of those with Blake Sanders, and it's helped us out with that. But just in particular, alignments and that might have changed since your original plan here. So that's just one piece of feedback, just to make sure you all follow up on that. The second part, I'd be really interested, just based on my past experience with the Green Crescent Trail and other parks, having even more than a micro phasing instead of the phase one. That looks really big to me, and I'm just looking at the realistic implementation of other parks and how the propensity in the past has been these plans look wonderful, and I'm excited about what I see here. But is it going to sit on the shelf like a lot of plans have, and without maybe just like a really super micro phased plan where maybe you say, here's $300,000 worth of phasing, here's $750,000. I think that the likelihood of it being implemented just in practical side of things is more difficult. So I know you all have done plans all over the place, but that's just my first impression, that this is a enormous plan and it's great, and I can see the end result would be awesome. But I wonder when it's going to happen, and if some of these things can be phased for less money. And maybe, for example, there's a hard surface trail that could be a natural trail in the beginning, so we could do it for very inexpensively and just do some grading. That's just one idea, but I would love to see something like that. And so that's my second point, and I don't know if that's a question, but the third point is there's some of these amenities seem like there's some redundancy with other parks, and I'm just wondering, have you all looked at any, like the Clemson Park plan and some of the other parks in town, to see if there's, the programming needs here are going to be redundant or maybe complementing? I'm just wondering how much of that y'all would look at. Yes.
Well, excellent point, Chad. And yes, we'll continue. We're looking forward to additional alignment information for the Green Crescent Trail. and we know that that's forthcoming and will be incorporated in. The comment about sort of microphase is a great one as well, and we can look into that as well as the phase one. We're coordinating with the city right now, and we'll be presenting to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board as well as City Council to gauge both input on the phasing and costs associated with those phasings, and determine a more appropriate time frame for those phases. And so we'll be presenting that information as part of the final plan. But we're definitely, I think, phase one, the intent is to really achieve as much as possible with phase one to really enhance the park. But I think, even in that, the time frame associated with projects such as that would be approximately a year of design and permitting, followed by approximately a year or so of construction. So it does take a little time to incorporate, and so there could be some opportunities to open up the expansion area for a lot of those uses that wouldn't require much of any kind of facilities associated with them. So the unpaved hiking or mountain biking and those types of opportunities could be utilizing the expansion space in the meantime while other elements are being designed and permitted. And so that's a great idea. And as far as the programming, we've been working with department staff to make sure that what is being included in here really complements the system and is more or less appropriate to this location within the community as well. And so that's been a factor of what's helped influence the program to make sure that we're not duplicating services. In some cases where we would be relocating programming to this site to further enhance it as a significant feature within the community.
Shelburne, I have a question about your 5,000. You said you had 5,000 responses. 5,000.
About 5,000 visits to the project website.
5,000 visits. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
do you know what kind of response from youth under 18 got involved with any type of feedback?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers with me just yet, handy, but we did have during the November timeframe, we did have a good amount of participation from the youth portion of the population. And this was primarily reflected with a very large contingency that voted for the inclusion of the skate park as one of the features within the site. And so we could actually tell, how people were accessing the survey. So there was a lot of access from Instagram postings for accessing and providing that input. But yes, we had some great input. In addition, we had input during the focus groups that also, and during our public workshop that reflected the need to have amenities here that served all ages of youth, not just,
Right.
2 to 5 or 5 to 12, but also teenagers, and making sure that there's things for the full age range here at Nettles Park. And so that was a big portion of balancing out those priorities and the programming that's included in each of these concepts.
So what is the plan in terms of showing these two concepts to youth? Or you could try to get feedback from them, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, well, we're going to continue to have the information available online and encourage through our social media channels to have additional input. And so we'll have this information posted for really the next 30 days online for reviews and comment. And so we hope to have a good participation on that. We're also going to be launching a survey this week with some additional questions regarding these concepts, and we can include a question in terms of the age of the respondent for that.
Okay. Thanks.
Christopher Ermiter here with a couple of questions, and a point in comparing concept A and concept B. I prefer B, and I noticed the one of the, I guess it's item 11, another one of the baseball / softball fields. It replaces what looks to be a body of water and I think a dog park from concept A. My first question is that body of water existing, or was that something that was going to be a retention pond from grading?
That would be in concept A. That would be a proposed retention area.
Okay, so that body of water doesn't exist naturally.
Correct.
Okay, great. That was my first question. The other question is the natural trails, unpaved. Are they mixed use? I may have missed that because I had a couple of interruptions that I wasn't able to hear everything. Will they be mixed use for hiking and mountain biking, or has that been addressed?
We haven't addressed that specifically at this concept level, but the idea would be to separate those uses to minimize conflicts between pedestrian hiking versus designated areas for mountain biking. And we'd also want to have an array of different ability levels for both the hiking and the mountain biking areas.
Great. The last thing may get input from Andy, or I think I saw Jay Bennett on here, and it echoes one of the earlier comments. My children are beyond school age now, but I find myself wondering if similar to what Chad said, with other city ball fields available, it seems like there might be a glut of fields prioritized. But I don't know what the demographics are. Can Andy or Jay Bennett weigh in there? Are we having scheduling issues with youth leagues and that sort of thing? Maybe there's an awareness, maybe there's a need that I'm not aware of.
This is Andy. I don't even know if you can hear me. I'm on a Surface Pro, but
yeah.
Okay. I know that the rec participation has grown exponentially in the past couple of years, and a lot of the practice opportunities are starting to fall at inconvenient times. So if they have a couple extra fields, it makes it so people can have team sport activities. They can have more practice and have games and practice at times that better suit family schedules. That's the reason I know that we're looking at additional fields. But this presentation here showed something where there was a clear preference for trails and paths. And it seems like that would be something we would want to look at putting into phase 1, because so many people want that, and I would assume they want it sooner rather than later. So I know we talked in a work session with staff earlier about phasing, but that was some information I saw tonight that's got me thinking.
I appreciate it. That helps, and it makes sense. I mean, I am not going to use them directly, but I'm in full support of anything that enables the participation for our youth, and not just in Clemson City, but the greater region. And the last comment I have to make is I think there should at least be some area designated for a cat bus stop. You don't necessarily have to build a structure, but I think it's short-sighted to not put that in the planning somewhere. We're trying to focus on all this connectivity, and alternative transportation is part of the bigger master plan of the city. And I think that would be a missed opportunity to not have at least a designed area or two for cat bus routes. And I'll take my mute back on. Thanks for everybody's participation.
Thank you for your input. Yes.
Nick, I'm sorry.
This is Fran McGuire. I just have a couple of questions. First, thanks for doing this. This is good stuff. It really is. And unfortunately, you can't do everything. So the decisions can go down to priorities, which is, I think, sort of going to be the difficult time. But getting back to something Chris just said and some others, Has your analysis included visiting the site and seeing the use patterns? I thought particularly the comment about tennis courts versus pickleball courts. Are the facilities being used now maxed out, not just the ball fields, or are there some facilities that are not being maxed out? And that might give an indication. And the second question is, in the area, have you looked at other, for instance, Frisbee golf courses and the kind of usage they're getting? Because we're dedicating space that may be replicating what others are doing, or maybe something that really doesn't resonate with many people other than a small core of serious users on that space.
Yeah, and I may call upon Jay as well. I think he was getting ready to add a little bit to that discussion of the use of the existing amenities at Nettles Park. But yes, we've been coordinating with Park Department staff on what the usage are, what the needs are with the existing fields and other amenities there and the courts. And so part of that has influenced ultimately what the program when it comes to the number of fields and the type of fields, specifically what would be needed in there. And so such as the compromise to have in concept B one additional baseball field instead of two. The need primarily currently is in that youth field and softball field sized field, and so it actually by having these additional facilities available also enhances Nettles Park is for tournament use as well, and having the multi-purpose field, the additional opportunity for access to for particularly youth soccer use would actually provide additional capacity to the existing baseball fields located closest to 18 Mile Creek. Currently, the outfields are used for youth soccer, and so those fields get very heavy use and have a lot of needs for recovery time because it's being used both for soccer and baseball throughout the year. And so having that additional capacity for the soccer would also allow for additional capacity to the existing baseball. So we're looking at things like that that we can enhance and almost get a 2-for-1 sort of benefit through that, and having you definitely a need grow for additional court access. So you can see our basketball courts is one element that is currently not available at Nettles Park, and providing that because as a destination itself would grow and probably increase the need to have additional amenities and a little bit more diversity in what's currently offered.
Nick, I would like to
address
the one of the comments that Bill Caraway made about the adult sports is the large field that we would add would also be used for adult softball to get them off of the fields in the floodplain. Also, the two new youth baseball, softball would be dirt in fields to be multi-purpose for either softball or baseball. Our biggest complaint now with what we have is late practices for younger kids. The more fields we have, the more early practices we can have to get the kids home at a decent hour.
And I'll also add in regards to the disc golf question as well, or the Frisbee golf. That's an amenity that it was mentioned several times as a priority by participants throughout the process. And there are some discussions and focus groups regarding Nettles Park being a site for a upwards of an 18-hole course. There's a decent amount of space that would be available for that. And really, one of the draws to that, it is a more of a specialty amenity. However, the region, including some new facilities in Central, is really becoming a sort of a hotbed for disc golf use, and regional tournaments could potentially utilize Nettles Park as one of a few destinations or courses for that. So it could be actually an economic development feature for the region as well, to be bringing in folks in here. But it mixes very well to some of the other more passive and adventure recreation elements that would be located throughout the eastern portion of the park. And it's a very low cost feature as well. In many cases, there's groups that can help develop the course and lay it out.
Yeah, this is Nick Shelburne. I'll just point out that we just renovated the Mountain View Lane Park on Monday with the Scouts, that 9-hole course, and we're actually talking to Tony Tidwell about possibly making another 9 holes out there. But that's, that's something that might happen, but I'm just pointing out that post-tornado, now that 9-hole course is now functional again.
Any other questions or comments folks have? And again, you might need to unmute yourself. As we wait, if you feel free to jump in if you have any questions. But in the meantime, I'll kind of recap here for folks. We have both the concept information and the phasing, as well as tonight's presentation are all posted on the project's website at the very bottom in the documents section, so you can download and view at your leisure and get to know the concepts a little bit more. We have a recording of this evening's presentation that we'll be posting onto the website as well, if you'd like to review and hear the descriptions a little bit more. We really appreciate everybody's input this evening. Our next steps, as we highlighted earlier, was we're going to meet with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board as well as City Council and get additional input on these concepts. And so out of this process over the next month, we'll have likely a hybrid version of this one of these concepts or a combination of these. And we'll have a final master plan that starts to develop in June. And then we'll be presenting that again with our final public meeting on July 21st, so Wednesday. And we'll be posting that information on the project website. So make sure to bookmark that and follow up with that. We'll continue to post information on the website, and we'll be presenting again the full master plan of this process, along with phasing and cost estimates with that. So there'll be a lot more content available with that. But thank you guys and everybody this evening for participating and providing your input in this process. It's the cornerstone of this master plan is your input, so we appreciate it. So with that, I'll do one last call for any comments or feedback that you'd like to provide. And we can stay on online as long as needed.
Nick, I'll just say thank you for your presentation tonight and doing a good job.
Thank you very much, Andy. Yes, well, we appreciate all the city staff's input in this process, and of course the full consultant team behind this. Takes a lot of folks to pull us together, so we appreciate hearing back that you like what you've heard and seen tonight. All right. As folks jump off again, check the project website for additional information. And thank you all very much.
Thanks, Nick, for putting this together and walking us through it, and everyone's comments. Appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing on.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Brandon.
Nick, please make sure you take a look at the comments that people made in the chat.
Excellent. Yes, we'll pull the comments down and document that as in our notes as well.
I've already pulled them, no worries.
Perfect. All right.
I think with that, Nick, we can close the call.
Yes, I think that will bring us to a conclusion. All right. We will wrap up our notes here and get that over, and we'll highlight anything that we need to follow up on discussions and prep for presentation to the advisory board later this month. And we'll circle up prior to that that meeting as well. All right. Well, thank you all for your contributions into this, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Nick and Brandon, for everything you did.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. Thank you very much, Jay. And thank you, Tony.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
good evening.
guys. Well done.
Bye.
Thank you.